Hello and welcome to the Between the Chapters Book Club. I am admin LJ. As always, I'm super excited to be joining you guys this evening. We have a really exciting panel discussion planned for you guys with Vanessa Riley and Priscilla Oliveras. I've been looking forward to this one for a couple of weeks now. I know I mentioned it last week during our admin Q&A, and I think you guys are going to have a great time. Both of these authors are incredible. Their stories are wonderful. And as you can see, all of the covers are beautiful and stunning to look at. And that definitely matches the stories inside those covers. So I hope you'll all join me in welcoming both of the authors onto our chat. As a reminder, if you pop a question into the comments below anytime during the hour, you'll be entered to win a series of flash giveaways. So make sure you get your questions ready, pop those down below. We will get to them throughout the chat and at the very end of our hour. So we look forward to talking with you guys during this. Hi, ladies. Thank you so much for joining our book club this afternoon.
Okay, happy to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
So I figured we'll just start off with letting both of you introduce yourselves, your newest books, and the books that we're going to be talking about this evening. So Priscilla, why don't you kick us off?
Sure. Hola, everyone. I am Priscilla Oliveras, USA Today bestselling author of contemporary romance with a Latinx flavor. My mom's from Puerto Rico. My dad's Mexican-American Tejano from San Antonio, Texas. And it's been an absolute joy working with Kensington and bringing some Latinx characters to readers. My latest two books we're going to kind of be talking about tonight. First is Anchored Hearts. It released at the end of April. It's book 2 in my Keys to Love series. And then just last week, Summer in the City released, and so you can head to the beach of Key West in Anchored Hearts for the second chance romance, and then you can jet up to New York City and see what happens when a blackout hits Manhattan. And these are 3 novellas. 3 friends who are headed out on Saturday for a girls' weekend, but Friday night they hit the town. They have separate plans, and lo and behold, that blackout hits and they get stuck in 3 different places with some unlikely heroes. Mine is called Lights Out, and it features a Lin-Manuel Miranda inspired hero who's a Broadway star and his secret high school crush who is now his worst theater critic, and see what happens with them. So those are the 2 books we'll be chatting about tonight. Vanessa, you've got some good stuff for us as well.
Oh, yes, I do. Hi, I'm Vanessa Riley. I write historical fiction and historical romance. I focus on the diversity within the Regency timeframe, Regency Georgian timeframe, which is, circa 1750s to about 1830s. My latest release, An Earl, the Girl, and a Toddler, follows the Widow's Grace, the secret organization of women who are dedicated to righting the wrongs that have befallen their colleagues. And they may break into buildings and steal pantaloons or whatever that's necessary in order to right wrongs. An Earl and the Girl features the newly ascended Lord Ashbrook, who was our Daniel Thackeray, who is our lawyer from A Duke, the Lady, and the Baby, and our favorite amnesiac, Jamila St. Mar. Well, at least that's who we think she is in An Earl, the Girl, and a Toddler.
Nice. Yay.
All of those sound amazing. I do love a little bit of mischief, which I think all of those books sounded like they had just a little bit of mischief, just a little bit of troublemaking, which, makes for a really fun time. So to kick us off, instead of our usual leap right into some questions, I have some would you rather questions for you guys. And readers, if you're following along, you're welcome to pop your answers into the comments as well. We are definitely interested to see who else feels the way that we do. So to kick them off, first, would you rather read a romance that's enemies to lovers or friends to lovers?
Ooh.
Enemies to lovers.
To me,
Fire.
for me, it's like one of my favorite tropes is actually friends to lovers. I feel like that angst of will they cross that line? Like if they already have something good going on, you know. So to me, as a reader, I want them to, but yet I totally get that maybe they don't want to ruin a good thing, and then once they do cross that line, it's like, you know. So although a good enemies or adversaries to lover can do the trick as well.
Absolutely. You know, I've got to say, I'm probably an enemies to lovers person, but only in my fiction. Real life,
Yeah.
friends to lovers, of course. All right. So, would you rather use an unconventional bookmark or dog ear the page of your book? Little controversial one.
Oh my.
I'll
Bookmark.
start. I will own up. I dog ear my books. My books, not library, not borrowed. My books, I will dog ear left, right, and center.
Bookmarks.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, for you people who do such dastardly things,
Yes.
you got to come up with a scale that says how good the book is. Like if I dog ear 20% of the book, you know it's golden, right?
Right. Yes, I do. My scale is if I've dog-eared the bottom of a page, it means there's a quote that I love and will hold on to. So the more that's on the bottom, the more I loved that book.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah. No, for me, I'd probably more likely use like a strange bookmark because it's either, you know, like if it's going to be really quick, then I'm like sticking a pen or a pencil that's nearby, or it's, you know, like a napkin that's there, or a receipt if I'm, you know, if I'm digging through my purse and you know, because I got the book in my purse, right? So it's like a receipt that's kind of, or a coupon that I forgot to use, you know, that's still in my purse, expired, but you know, that kind of thing. So probably the strange bookmark.
Perfect. So this one will be posed for one of the characters in your books. It can be the hero or the heroine. I'll let you decide. But would the character of your book prefer to have an afternoon tea or indulge in some really sweet desserts?
Oh. Okay, so I would for my heroes, I would say Mateo, the Broadway star in Lights Out. He's on like a strict diet, like, you know, with his contract. So he would probably just have the tea, but crave the dessert. And Luis, and no, that's Island Affair. Anchored Hearts is Alejandro. Alejandro is going to have the dessert, yeah, and he's probably going to ask double.
Daniel Thackeray will have a dessert. He will have a dessert with breakfast. He will have a dessert with lunch. He will have a dessert.
Ooh, I want to have a meal with him then.
Yes, a dessert themed. That's one of the ways to get to his heart, being able to bake.
Nice. I just say desserts all the way. Every meal, any meal, I'll have them instead of a meal. Let's do
dessert
some
first.
Time.
Yeah. Actually, in our family, when my girls were growing up, we loved the Friday after Thanksgiving. And now we like bake extra pie so that we make sure we have leftover pie, because Friday after Thanksgiving breakfast is always pie, you know, like leftover pie. So
that's perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So I've got a few more up my sleeve. We'll bring them back around towards the end of the chat. But since we've started talking a little bit about the characters in the books, you've both talked a little bit about what your books are about, a little bit about the series as well. As readers have noticed, the title of this chat is Diversity in Romance. So let's just start with a conversation about what does that mean to the pair of you? What does diversity in romance really mean? And Vanessa, I'll let you kick this one off.
Okay. Diversity in romance to me means showing you people in a time that you don't typically see. The Regency and Georgian era were actually very widely diverse. There were numerous influences from India, from Asia, from Africa, from the West Indies. But typically in historical romance, particularly Regency romance, you don't see any of that. And so it's kind of been a mission of mine to do that. Another thing that I love to do is I love to bring in people who are not that may have disabilities. Something as mild as stuttering, something as major as an amputation, hearing losses, because during the Regency, you have a lot of veterans from the war that are coming back, and they're impacted from the war. They're bringing injuries. If they're lucky to live, because anything could kill, a scratch could kill you.
Right.
If you're lucky to live, you're coming back and you're trying to assimilate back into the landscape, and you may have post-traumatic stress, which wasn't called that back then. You may have physical challenges. We're not even going to talk. We should talk about the birth defects potentially because of malnutrition. It's like all these things that you don't think about in romance, and I'm not trying to be the downer here, because when I bring these characters in, it's a celebration of these characters. We're going to see their joy and their happiness and how they're doing life. So when you read a Vanessa Riley romance, it's going to be a safe place. It's going to be a happy place. And you're going to see people, they may have a couple struggles, but at the end of the day, love wins out, and you're going to see their joy.
I think I agree. Like, I love that you use the word celebration, Vanessa. And real quickly, hi. Well, Frida said hi, Priscilla. She loved Key West. I love Key West too. So it was a joy to be able to take readers home with me to Key West. So speaking Key West, in Anchored Hearts, you'll meet the Navajo familia, a Cuban American familia. And in all of my books, at least one of the main characters, if not both of them, are Latinx. So you'll meet their familia, both their blood familia, also their extended comunidad, the community that becomes like, our familia, because we're also, intertwined in our lives and helping each other. And so for me, diversity is for within my books, you'll get that a little bit of the Latinx culture. It's not all the book is about. I have had someone ask me, if I'm not Latinx, am I gonna really connect with your characters, and or am I gonna get your book? And I'll say at its heart, my book is a romance, and it is about. I don't write about Navy SEALs and guns and and espionage and all that. They're people a lot like me, and a lot just living and loving and trying their best to lead good lives, making mistakes and having things happen, life conflicts happen to them. But I think diversity means being able to see something that's a little bit different, but yet also the same at its heart, as you or as me, so my hope is, if you read Priscilla Oliveras' book and you're Latinx, that you feel like you've seen a little bit, if you've experienced a little bit of our culture. If you're not Latinx, then I hope it, maybe it has expanded your appreciation for that aspect of my characters' lives and how they live. But diversity to me it's important, no matter your background or and anything, that our readers should be able to see our books celebrate the joy and the hope of healthy relationships. And I feel like it's important for everybody at some point to be able to pick up a romance novel and see someone like them or like one of their loved ones achieving that, living a good life and having love in their life. So that's, to me, like the heart of why diversity is important across the board, not just Latinx, diverse all around.
Right. Absolutely. You both touched on a little bit about what the next question I was going to pose would be. So that's great. You both talked a little bit about that perspective piece and the joy and celebration of bringing in cultures or people or, stories that may not have been regularly seen within the romance landscape. So in the process of your writing, how much research did you have to do to build out those stories, and how did you approach crafting stories that, like you said, could appeal not only to that specific outset or that specific culture, but also to people who may not be familiar with the culture? And on this, and we'll let Priscilla kick us off.
Oh, sure. I'll say my research is going to be a little bit different than Vanessa's because mine's contemporary. With Anchored Hearts, like setting wise, I grew up in Key West, junior high through all of high school, and so then even college and early married life. When I would go home to visit my parents, it was and my family, it was to Key West. So and I go back pre-pandemic regularly to visit. So the setting is something that I know. And really the joy in that became trying to make the island come to life for readers, especially those who had never been there. But even with a contemporary romance, there's research I need to do within Anchored Hearts. There's a small thread. Alejandro, our hero, his one of the issues that he has with his father is the way Alejandro wants to create a legacy or honor their ancestors, and like his grandfather who didn't make it over from Cuba to the U.S. Alejandro and his father have different ways of wanting to do that. And one of the reasons it's so important to Alejandro's father is Alejandro's dad was one of the children who came over late 50s, early 60s as part of what's known as the Peter Pan operation. And I was familiar with that because of familia friends that we have. So I've heard about it, but again, with any topic. So like with that one or in Island Affair, Sarah has OSFED, other specified feeding and eating disorder, that I know through like family friends who've had children who've kind of struggled with that. But any topic like that I want to make sure that I'm being respectful, that I'm getting it right from all of the perspectives. You have to do research. It's like starting off, for me, it's starting off on Google and reading everything I can. It's watching videos, it's listening to podcasts, it's finding blogs where people have first person accounts. It's getting on the phone to call, to call somebody. When I was writing Their Perfect Melody, Diego is a cop in Chicago and Lily's a victims advocate. And I have a friend who's a victims advocate in Florida, and she gave me some great information, but then she also said, things here in Florida could be different than in Chicago. So you want to call somebody. So I called a women's shelter in Chicago to get some information. I wanted to know specifically, I had a scenario for Diego and I wanted to make sure, could that really happen as a cop, right? The worst thing that can happen is for a reader to say, to be familiar and to say, yeah, no, this totally can happen. And it pulls them out of the story and they put your book down. So I had done my research on Google and found a map of all the precincts of Chicago. So I knew which precinct Diego would work in because I knew where he needed to be situated. And so I called that precinct and they put me in touch with, like a neighborhood community person who, was able to give me some, this is exactly what he would radio in and this is what they would say. And so I think even for, contemporary romance, they say, write what you know, but also what you're interested in knowing about. And then it's, doing the research at all levels, on the online and talking to people when you can, so that you have, you're giving an authenticity to your characters. I also love Google Satellite is awesome. So I don't know how Vanessa does that. She's going to tell us that. But for me, when I'm looking for their homes and where they're going to live, I will go on Zillow in an area, and like in Chicago, in Humboldt Park for Diego, even in Key West, I went online to find where are they going to live. I will say that Navarro Familia House is the house I grew up in. Like they live on Diamond Drive and I lived on Diamond Drive, and the house that I describe is our childhood home that's still there. But Google Satellite is awesome because you get an address and you put it in there and it can give you 360 degrees of what it would look like. So I found a house that was on Zillow for Diego and Their Perfect Melody, and I could look out his window and know what he would be looking at if he was standing in his kitchen, looking out the back window, drinking his coffee in the morning. So that's kind of a little bit of what I do. Vanessa.
I use the old-fashioned Google. Books.
Wow.
And this particular book is an A to Z Regency London, which literally has the street maps.
Oh, wow.
That's
interesting.
That's amazing.
So oftentimes I will find a townhouse that is in current London, that dates back to the time frame that I'm looking at, and I will find its street and see if it's still there, or if it was, the different, because sometimes the street names have changed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I like to do as much of a deep dive as possible, because when you are writing, I want you to feel like you're there. So
Yeah.
if you ever read any of my books and they're turning down a street, that's a real street. That is the way the carriages would have, or horseback would have gone, because I've done that level of deep dive, because I want you to feel like you're there.
Right.
Buildings, when I take you into the Old Baileys, I take you to Drury Lane, I take you to the theaters, I take you to Westminster Abbey. Big Ben was not there during my time frame. So if you ever
So
and
never
that's
look for
the
that
worst
for a
thing.
pinpoint.
Yeah. Right. That's the worst thing.
Yeah.
If for someone just to notice that.
Yeah, but that's sloppy research, right?
Yes.
Because there's a time frame. There are times where if you use a present day Google map, it'll take you on a bridge that did not exist. And literally, some people will fudge because a bridge will be there. It will be built in 1806 and your story's in 1805. Not this girl right here. No.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it to you. I researched the clothes, and so I go to some of the different archives. The UK has beautiful archives, so you can get into you can order paperwork. So I've ordered wills. There are diaries online. You can order different things. The worst time is when I have to do translations from French to English. That's a nightmare.
Do you speak French?
Badly, yes. I speak German badly. I speak French badly.
Wow.
I can still read it fairly well, so I know what I'm looking at. But yeah, that's. But
yeah,
you do what you need to do, because this is a time frame that we think we know, but we really don't know. What we really see is we see Hayer's version of Georgette Hayer's version of the Regency. Where they're and it's pretty whitewashed. It's pretty much it's the balls, and there's so many things that are happening. Hey, funny people say too.
Je parle français. Yeah.
There's you only see a lot of times you only see the balls. You may see some townhouses, but there's the countryside. There are just so many different things, and the Regency was fascinating. There are hot air balloons during this time frame.
Yeah.
So there's so much technology,
and
you never see these things. Right?
Yeah.
And so my shtick is I'm going to be as authentic as possible, so that you feel like you're there, from the clothing to the mannerisms to literally down to the types of streets, because I want to give you that experience. And so I do a lot of research. I get primary resources. I get diaries, you name it. I'm going to try it. Even random translations in other languages, just to get you guys the best facts.
And I think even, so Wilfreda asked, in Summer in the City, did I go to New York? I wrote it during the pandemic, so I did not get to go, but I would have loved to have had to take a trip to New York, to research, had the pandemic not been going on. However, New York is one of the top 3 favorite cities in the US. The other one is Chicago, hence why my Match to Perfection series was set in Chicago. So I visited a lot. And so I went a lot on memory. I also went a lot on Google Maps. I looked at online, like I set the theater. I knew that I didn't want, I knew like what type of theater I wanted Matteo's musical to be on stage at. And so I kind of looked at all kinds of pictures that I could of the Booth Theater. And actually I emailed the Booth Theater, and not knowing if they would get back to me because it was pandemic. And I did. They heard back, because I wanted to, I had never been to a show inside the Booth Theater. I'd been to, it's attached to another theater, and I'd been in that one. And so I had a specific question about like where the band would be, because not everybody, in my research, I discovered that not every theater has an orchestra pit. So I wanted to make sure if I put the band in an orchestra pit at the Booth Theater and there's not one, anybody who's been to the Booth Theater who reads my novella right away, that's going to, chapter 1, it's going to take them out. And that was my basic question, but they got back to me, and I was able to No, there's not an orchestra pit, by the way. So I had to make sure I had the band, on the stage. So little things like that, for me, it's contemporary. If I say they took a left onto the street, but someone who lives there, no, that's a one way. So they couldn't have been, they wouldn't have taken a left, correct. To me, sometimes my sister, who's my main beta reader, is like, you're getting into the weeds too much, but for me, it helps me. The more I know, like Alejandro, he comes back to Key West because he's like broken his tibia really badly. I am not a blood and guts person, but I watched a lot of surgeries on YouTube, a lot of times like this, kind of like trying to, because I felt like I needed to know what could have happened to him, before he got on stage, and not on stage, on the page. And it's a lot about like what Vanessa said, the authenticity that you want. And it also helps me to get in better inside the character's skin, like inside their head, to try to write from their perspective. If I feel like I'm walking the streets that they're walking on, and or I have walked those streets before, helps me.
Yeah. Right. And if you're my hero and you're trying to pick out a place for a tryst, when your house, your manor house is like, well, I don't know, at the end of Finchley Road, and the woman that you're courting is in Sandlin Court, you've got to find a nice 30-minute drive each way so that you guys can meet up in an appropriate,
right,
form or fashion. And that was one of the challenges my hero was looking into. But being it, like Priscilla's saying, the more research we do makes a much more authentic story, because you're not coming necessarily for the details. You're coming for a sweeping romance, something that's going to just lift your spirits. But at the same time, we're going to wrap you up in the history, or we're going to wrap you up in the facts of everyday life, so that you can just feel comfortable and just have a moment of escape.
Like immerse yourself into that world is what I want. I want the readers to feel like they have their toes in the sand at Higgs Beach with Ana Maria and Alejandro, and you're meeting for that tryst with Vanessa's characters, like you're there in that garden or wherever she's putting, as a reader, I appreciate when I can just get swept up in a story. And so I feel like Vanessa and I both work hard to try to do the same, for you with ours.
I do love this question from Facebook user Judy. This one is a little more specific to Vanessa. She's wondering whether or not you find it difficult to write those historical romances, and if that level of research can be exhausting, or for me, I would imagine it's pretty daunting when you get down to the weeds of it.
At this point, no. I love it because everything builds upon everything else. So you start with a base knowledge of how the world works. How do they make money? Where do they live? What do they look like? What do their clothes look like? What happens when clothes wears out? How does it, you this base level. So then every fact that you get on top of that just continues to build in this world. So all of my books are set pretty much between 1750 to 1830, because that's the world that I'm invested in and I'm living in.
Right.
Now, if I had to go to Victorian, which, is 2 periods after, that would be problematic, because I have to start research all over again of figuring out, well, how does the world work? Because Regency and Georgian are different. So in that respects, I love writing historical romance. I love writing historical fiction. I love staying in this world and bringing you as many as exciting stories as I possibly can.
And we need them. Yeah. We need your stories like yours.
I am curious whether or not you've ever run into like a language structure, I don't want to say issue, but complication, because the languaging is so different, especially with a Regency romance versus, how we naturally talk.
Yes. I wanted someone to call my lovely barrister an uppity man.
Right.
Uppity is not a word during the Regency.
Oh, no.
So we had to use the words up-nosed barrister.
Interesting.
Oh, kind of like, like snoot, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So once again, this is, just like Priscilla, we do these research. There are words that just did not exist during the time frame.
Right.
And I try very, very hard not to use words that didn't exist. There are times that, we do cheat. It's if it takes you too many words to explain what you were trying to say, that'll take somebody out of the story. And then there are upon occasions where I might put a little gift into for my readers, just a little tiny bit, so that if you read it, the sentence really slowly, you'll be like, I know what she's talking about. little,
Nice.
little things. But for the most part, I try and stay with period language.
Okay. And Priscilla, I know that you incorporate Spanish within your books, just kind of throughout the story. It's very natural, and it's, knowing people of Puerto Rican descent or of Dominican descent, it always comes across very naturally. Do you ever struggle to find that balance of, readers who may not be familiar with Spanish, making sure they understand or learn from your book in the process?
Well, I try to, thus far, the characters I've written that are Latinx all speak the language at home, right? So like I do. And so, in our house, we kind of intermingle, like my mom and I will be cooking dinner, and, she might say, dame eso from the microwave, which means like, give me that from the microwave, or vice versa, like, because like that code switching, because we speak, we understand both. I do not want, just like I said, I don't want a reader to get a point that, if I mess up or something in research and they're like, no, that's not possible. I don't want a reader who does not speak the language to feel like they need to put my book down and go to Google or click, if they're reading on a Kindle, like go to Google, I don't want that either. At the same time, when I say something in Spanish, I don't translate it in English in my head. So to be true to the characters, I can't do that. But so what I try really hard to do is in context, give the reader a clue of what was just said. So, for example, in Her Perfect Affair, which is Rosa and Jeremy's like surprise baby, friends to lovers, there's that trope. Lili, the younger sister, and Yasmin, the older sister, are arguing. And Yasmin tells Lili, cállate la boca. Right. And Lili right away responds with, don't tell me to shut my mouth. I can say whatever I feel like. Right. So hopefully if the reader has continued reading and didn't stop real quickly to go to Google, they'll know, okay, Yasmin just told her to shut her mouth. So I try hard to do that. The first time Diego says coño, I'll like his next thought is, no, this was a double damn situation. So that then, hopefully they understand coño means damn to, at least to people in the Caribbean. That's another thing. It does not mean damn to people in Spain. And I did not know that until my editor Googled it. And then Martin, and he sent me a nice little note that said, are you sure this is the word you want to use? And I was like, yeah. We use that all the time. I stub my toe and I say, ay, coño. My girlfriend walks in and I'm like, coño, girl, you look good, right? It means like damn. And then I Googled it. So I just made sure then, especially with coño, I would make sure to like drop a damn in right afterwards so that nobody would ever Google. But to me, it's important to be true to the characters. There's gonna be Spanish, sprinkled through, like Spanglish is just a part of the vernacular. Someone else asked me once, how do you know when to switch to Spanish? And it's nothing like every fourth word or every third word. It's just kind of a feel. So I try really hard when I'm writing in Ana Maria's point of view, I'm in her head. I hope that, as I'm describing things and the words that are coming out are hers. And so just when it feels natural to her, she would, or if their mom, because the moms are meddling a lot in this book. They want their kids to get back together. So there's a lot of, the parent will say Spanish and the child will respond, but it's a matter of hopefully giving enough context clues that those who took Spanish in high school might be able to test themselves and see how much they remember. But you'll quickly know the answer based on either inner thought or something that someone else says right away.
Right. I just have to laugh because, of course, there's always meddling moms involved. So I'm going to take a step back from this particular topic. We have a couple of reader questions I want to throw into the chat.
Yeah.
From Chelsea, she's wondering, what genres are your favorite to read? You know, are you romance? I mean, I assume we're all romance readers to an extent, but are there other genres you love to read as well?
You can go.
Yeah, I love mysteries, and I really love historical fiction. So just finished Kate Quinn's latest, Chanel Cleveland's latest, Denny S. Bryce's latest.
I was going to say, Denny's got a good one out there.
It's been the latest kind of summer.
Yeah.
So it's just really exciting to see how people take history and make it fresh and new and tell us these stories that we couldn't maybe imagine before we saw it on the page.
Lately, obviously I'm reading a lot of romance. I've also been reading like a lot of how-tos. I just took, I'm like going through Becca Syme's series, like, like the Quit books. And so a lot of self-help books this year, 2020, my word is positivity. And trying to be more positive with others, but also really looking more positive self-talk and being more positive with myself, which the whole positivity went really well with admin LJ. You had that great idea for the Anchored Heart Silver Lining series, like looking for the positives and the good things. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's like right up my alley this year. So trying to do, I've been listening to, trying to get a little bit more into meditation. But so books right now, if they're not romance, a lot of them are like self-help, and personal growth kind of right now.
I love that. I've
been doing a lot more audiobooks.
Yes.
Oh,
this time frame. And so it's like binging, but in a different way.
Now, do you do different genres in audio versus reading?
No, I'm probably one track note. It's still
that's
still romance.
Yeah,
that's okay. I was just curious because that's how I do it.
Oh, you mix it or just mostly romance? Did you say you mix it or mostly romance and audio?
No, so my audio is usually nonfiction, and then reading is usually romance or like YA and things like that. But yeah, if my nonfiction, I get audio.
I'll say I'm trying to get into audiobooks. Like I have the audio subscription because to try to read more. But there's just something about seeing the written word, on the page, seeing how, as a reader, but also as a writer, especially. So if there's a book that I really like that I've just gotten on audio, I will go ahead and get it, usually on print, because if I really like it, because I just want to. There's something about seeing the words on the page and how a sentence is put together, that appeals to me, and it kind of draws me as a reader and then also as a writer.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
Yes.
So then we have Heather, who's wondering, kind of in the same vein, but growing up, was there a particular genre or type of book you like to read?
In high school, I remember in high school, like devouring Victoria Holt Gothic novels and like the early romance. So like junior high and high school, like the Sweet Valley High romances, until I was a sophomore in high school when I discovered adult romances, right? When my dad was a big romance reader. And so I read one of his romances while we were waiting in a hurricane shelter in the Keys. But prior to discovering adult romances, it was still, like along that, as a young kid, I went through, there was a series of like biographies, so like I read Babe Diedrichson and Jackie Robinson and just a whole bunch of biographies of, I guess it must have been like a series of sports, because every title I'm thinking now they're sports fans, where they were athletes, which ties into me because I'm a huge sports fan. So I guess even as a kid, I enjoyed those. I think my favorite kids book that I can remember is Charlotte's Web.
A good one to
Charlotte
have.
Webb is is a classic.
Yes.
Speaking of classics, my mother made sure we were very much into the classics. So we had a
Nice.
lot of Shakespeare, a lot of Wadsworth,
Mm.
some Longfellow, that kind of fun. Ooh, just the stuff just make you warm and fuzzy, right? And then I would sneak off and get these little zebra romances. So
Mhm.
Ooh,
to
nice.
me, it's kind of a dream to be able to be a zebra
I
author
know.
in
Yeah.
Kensington. So I'm very excited about that. And then I had
That's like coming full circle, Vanessa. That's awesome.
isn't it
Yeah.
though? Isn't it
Yeah.
though? So just I think anytime you can get kids reading is so exciting.
Yeah.
Um, and like I said, lately I've been doing a little bit more of mystery reading, and so I just
Mm.
the Easy Rollins series by Mosley have been really cool, and then Sherry
Really? Huh.
Thomas's
Yeah.
mysteries, just really cool stuff.
Hmm. Oh, interesting.
I love
I'll,
that.
I'll I'll say how you kind of came full circle with Zebra. The first time that I read a romance where I felt like like these were my people, like people like me, was reading Kensington, one of Kensington's Encanto books, and that after that, like the next manuscript that I started was the first book that had Latinx characters in it, and I felt like it helped me turn a corner to before the books that I'd written hadn't sold for a lot of reasons. They were bad for a lot of reasons, right? I was learning my craft, but I felt like discovering the Encanto line that Kensington had at that time helped me to, like, it flipped something in me that allowed me to recognize that the stories that I really wanted to tell, there was a place for them. So like selling my debut to Kensington was kind of similar in the same way that it was. I knew it was. And then I got a letter from Stephen Zacharias, like an actual letter, not an email. And it said, "Welcome to the Kensington family." And I thought, oh my gosh, this is the place I'm supposed to be. my family stories have a place here. So
Gotta love
it's
the
nice
full
when that
circle.
happens. Yeah.
The moments.
So very similar to that comment, we had someone early on in the chat ask, did you know that you always wanted to be an author? And if not, what was that dream that you had as a young person?
Absolutely not. My mother, bless her soul, she stressed being able to pay your bills.
Mm-hmm.
She stressed that very well. And since I was gifted in both math and writing, she decided that, you know what, you should really pursue that math. You can fall back on that writing later. And,
Right.
Went through, got some degrees from Penn State University, from Stanford University, did math extremely well. But the hunger to write is always there. It's when you are a writer, you always want to write.
Yeah.
You're and in your head, you're scribbling someplace or you're taking notes on your phone, and that urge is going to come back. And for me, it came back in gangbusters. And so I'm excited to be where I am, being able to write
Yay.
stories for you.
Yay. Nice. I knew initially I wanted to be like an English teacher. So it's kind of still, a little bit what I'm doing now. I'm adjunct faculty in my MFA program now at Seton Hill University. The idea to major in English, maybe think about writing, was kind of implanted in there by one of my high school teachers. We had done a short story like section. And so after that, she was the one that said, have you thought about majoring in English? Have you thought about writing? But it wasn't the idea to become a writer or to try to write a book actually hit me. I was in college, young, married military spouse, and young mom. I had a 4-month-old, and we had a surprise military move across the country. And so I had to take a semester off of college. And at that point, I just did what a lot of readers do and say, what, I like reading books. I'm going to try to write one. Like, how hard could it be? Newsflash, it's not the easiest thing. But I think at that point, like that, the bug like bit me then. And so I just started writing around like raising kids and finishing my degree and getting to other degrees. And now, like, like Vanessa said, it's a joy to be able to, I am a teacher, but I also have, I'm lucky enough to be able to tell the stories that are in here and in here, wanting to come out and share them with people.
Is there, and maybe there's no easy answer to this, or there may not be an answer, but I'm curious if you had to pinpoint one book that changed your life, or one book that has always stuck with you, is there one book for you?
That we've read or that we've written? Or
that you've read.
Oh, wow.
Or if you want to do one of your own books that you wrote that changed the game for you, that's also on the table. Like I said, a little bit of a difficult one for you.
Yes. Wow.
See, you just pushed it out my head.
I think I'll say craft wise, like the Phyllis, Pamela Regis's text. It's called A Natural History of a Romance Novel. So it's a textbook, but it also it talks to you about the 8 essential elements that are in a romance novel and the 3 like optional incidentals. So it's a great how-to book. And then she studies classic novels through each of the different eras. So like Regency and the start of Mary Stuart, like the start of romantic suspense, up to like Nora Roberts and now more contemporary, and shows you how those 8 essential and oftentimes 1 or all 3 of the optional elements are woven in different ways. So reading that in my MFA program really kind of helped something click. Writer wise, me. So craft wise, that's been a helpful book for me, an important book as a writer. But I'm trying to think like as a reader. Wow.
I've got some.
Did you get one, Vanessa?
Yeah. So for me, the book that changed my thinking was a book by Julie Lessman called A Passion Most Pure. And it was the first time I saw an extremely passionate book that had faith in it, that was all the things that you love in romance, but yet it was edifying and it was just, I'd never seen a book like that. I never thought that anybody would publish a book like that, and it was published. And I was like, if they're going to publish something like that, there's hope. But
nice.
At the time, it was very different than everything else that was being published in romance. And when you can see publishers willing to take risks on books that, authors with no track record, different twists on the genre, that is very exciting, right? Something like Love by Beverly Jenkins, seeing, people with antics and joy and history all mixed together, and it was just a great experience to read. And another one, actually on my, this is my shelf.
Is on your keeper shelf?
Unforgettables. These are my shelf of unforgettables.
Oh, nice.
Unforgettables. We have Linda Windsor's Winter Rose, Pat Simmons' Guilty of Love, Bettina Kahn's The Perfect Mistress, Julia Quinn's The Duke and I mentioned Something Like Love. And we have Matched Pair by Eva Rutland. Eva Rutland was one of the first Black women to ever write Regency romances. She wrote them for Harlequin.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so.
That's really good.
Because you can't go do anything without Grace Burroughs. They're on my shelf.
Nice. My keeper shelves are at home.
Can you think of one book on your keeper shelf?
Oh my goodness. I will say just a recent book. Alexis Daria's You Had Me at Hola is really good. I mean, I love the representation it's a like a story within a story, right? Because she's got the story of the main characters, and then those main characters are in a show, like kind of like in a telenovela, or like in a show that's on a streaming service. So she's telling their stories as the characters. So it's kind of like a mini story within another story, but the representation, the family, the community that they create, the characters themselves, it's a beautiful, beautiful book. So, a recent one that's definitely one I would, that's on my keeper shelf. But so are Mia Sosa's and The Worst Best Man and some of Sabrina's Soul. I've got Sonali, all of Sonali Dave's are on there. Some Barbara O'Neill. Barbara O'Neill writes beautiful books. One of my favorite of hers that I will take out and read to inspire me as a writer. Because as a reader, I love it. I fall into her story, but it's The Lost Secret Recipe for Happiness. I think that's the Lost Recipe for Happiness. It takes place like in the world of restaurants. It's like in Lake Tahoe, and her descriptions are so beautiful. Her way with words are so beautiful. So I love it. I fall into it as a reader, but as a writer, it inspires me then also. I'll read a chapter of it before I start writing as inspiration to get to my work and hopefully do as beautiful of a job of bringing my reader into the story with the words that I write that day.
I love that. You guys just named a bunch of books and authors that are definitely on my shelf and also on my to be read pile. So it's definitely on the same page with a lot of those. So one last question before we do a couple more would you rathers.
Sure.
We have just a few more minutes left. There was a comment earlier on in the chat that, of course, now I can't find, but it inspired me to ask this question about escapism and romance. And so I'm wondering, what is your favorite part about writing and reading romance, especially when it comes to that escapism element?
Oh, I think the favorite part of writing, always that HEA, right? When I get to the end and there's that, hopefully like that swell of emotion. I think when I'm writing, that's also one of my most stressful times. I'm most stressed at the beginning, starting, because those imposter syndrome doubts kick in and I got to try to shut them up and, and get started. At the end, it's stressful because I feel like by then I know them really well, and it's the story's like this movie playing in my head, and then the stress is, am I getting it on the page correctly? And usually like the deadline's ticking, and I'm like, no, wait, I just need a little bit more time, and I can get it right. But for me, I love when you're writing a scene and you feel yourself like caught up in the emotions, right? Like there are times where like I have to step away because either like I'm starting to cry, or I just feel like so overwhelmed with what the character's feeling that I need to step away because I can't, the words won't come because I'm like so verklempt. Those moments are like wonderful, when they happen. They're like little gifts. And then I always hope that it's a sign that I'm doing something right at that moment. But those are the times when I'm writing that I think I feel the most joy.
I love writing the first kiss.
Oh,
that moment when, especially if it's unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
you fall into it where you have all these different situations going on, and then somebody takes the initiative and they have that first kiss, and it's either horrible because it was unexpected or it's magical because it's everything they thought it should be in a kiss. Either case, I love those various cases, but that is the best time.
I do love a first kiss gone wrong. There's something so fun about that moment.
Yeah. But there's also like those little moments, like a little touch or just, that can be so meaningful. I think the best way to describe it is if you've seen the Pride and Prejudice, right, with Keira Knightley and Matthew McFadden, right?
You did not bring out 2005 version of Pride and Prejudice.
Oh no!
But that one scene that to me,
just because they make it a
and I
gift
guess
does not make it better. I'm just saying.
no, I'm just like, for me, because, and I will say also in part because I write like closed door, right? So like it does get hot and heavy, but for me personally, I feel like, okay, I need to give them some privacy now. Let's close the door. We all know kind of what's going to happen. But so to me, what I love is when you're reading a book or when I'm writing it and it happens, hopefully, when there's, like a central moment or there's a connection and it's just like the slightest touch there. I have a replica of this Rodin, sculpture, and it's called the steeple, or maybe it's the church. I'm getting get myself mixed up, but it's like two hands and they're linked like just barely like this. I don't want to put my face in front of it. And when I saw that at there's a Rodin museum in Philadelphia, and when I saw it, it struck me. First of all, the artistry and how he could, it could make me feel something, but you can just feel like the emotion, and those fingers are just barely touching. It's a reminder to me of, yes, sex on the page can be good, right? But there doesn't have to be sex on the page for your reader to feel the connection or the desire for a connection between your characters. If it's, if it's done well. So if I do my job correctly, right? Alejandro just, stroking her arm is gonna make me and her, and the reader, feel, that connection between them. So even those little moments, within your, when you hit on them correctly, those, to me, those are fun to write, and they're fun to read as well.
Absolutely agreed. All right. So, like I said, I have a couple more would you rathers tucked away up my sleeve. So we'll finish off our hour with just a few more rapid fire rounds of this. And this one, I'm going to have Vanessa answer first. So, would you prefer to attend a beach bonfire or a Regency ball?
Regency ball.
That's going to an obvious question. But you never
Ball,
know.
full gown, cram.
Yes, the gown is a must.
And a Duke. I gotta have a Duke on our arm.
Yeah. Well, of course.
Get one of those for me.
The full Regency experience.
Yes.
Priscilla, how about you?
Oh, for beach bonfire.
Yeah.
The beach is my happy place. It's my well refilling, my that, or a baseball game, a Cubs game, but the beach, no.
Right.
You cannot have a bonfire on the beach in Key West, just so you know. But
good to know.
A legal beach bonfire, I would like to attend. Yeah.
Right. I had a feeling that's where it was going to shake out, but I had to ask it anyways. As a reader, would you rather read a romance with a grumpy hero or a sunshine hero? And I'll let Priscilla answer this one first.
Oh, I like a good cinnamon roll hero. So like grumpy, probably but grumpy, a little sweet. Crusty at times, or right. A little, but secretly sweet. Knows right. When he needs, knows when he needs to be gentle or, can be. So I probably have to go with grumpy, I guess.
Vanessa?
Same thing. I like a nice grumpy, little bit of crust on the outside, but nice and tender on the inside.
Yeah.
This one is a would you rather on your writing style. A little less would you rather, more of a which one are you? But are you, and again, I think I know the answers to these already based on this conversation, but are you a planner or a pantser? And Vanessa, we'll let you go first.
I'm a planner. So the combination.
Right? Okay.
Like a planster or a plotster?
Yeah, a planster.
Yeah.
Because I set out I call them signposts. This is where my story needs to go. And I'm answering those main questions of, what is the goal? What are their relationship statuses? What is the lie that they've been told that needs to change as we go throughout the book? But then how do I get between the signposts is where I pants, because sometimes that's more that's more fascinating, but you still end up at the same
Mhm.
goalpost as you continue to go forward.
Yeah.
So kind of a hybrid
I'm
approach.
a hybrid is what you're, yeah.
Okay.
I'm kind of a hybrid leaning heavily into the planner. I will say I've learned that it helps me to have usually like to start a book if I'll have half, maybe three-fourths, like I'll have scenes that I think need to happen. Like trying to think of the challenges that they need to face or the things that need to happen to help them grow along, like the character arc that I know that where they need to grow. And then oftentimes I'll know like what that last scene is going to be, or like where it will be, kind of what needs to happen. There might be a little bit that's not planned out, like maybe like that last fourth to kind of see what needs to happen, or in case some of these scenes are big enough or take up a lot of room. For me, one, like I mentioned earlier, starting a book, those imposter syndrome doubts can really flare up. Like, are you sure you know what you're doing? And by having like a roadmap, like Vanessa, how you said signpost, by having these scenes, then I can silence them. Like, yes, see, I have a plan. So now be quiet and go sit in the corner. As I start writing, though, it's very often I'll write scene cards, like on note cards, but there's always at least, multiple times throughout the book as I start writing where the character kind of, and I know it's me and my imagination, but like, the character will tell me something or a better idea will come. And so the scene that I thought needed to be in the book or that I thought needed to happen then is either tossed or it's bumped to later, because as I'm writing and as the story is unfolding and I'm really living in the character's shoes, a better idea comes along. So it's not that I plan it and then I stick to that. I will if it's going well, but if a better idea comes along, then that game plan, that roadmap might change a little bit for the better. But having one helps me to get started.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And then last one, again, not quite a would you rather, a little bit more of a which do you prefer. So as a reader, would you, for a book that has a movie or TV adaptation, do you prefer to read the book first and then watch, or watch and then read the book?
Read the book.
I'm reading the book, yeah.
And then I'm watching.
Yeah.
And then I'm saying, which one I like better?
Yeah.
Which one do you like?
Like there's
I really like how they handle that. Or,
right.
Yeah. There's some movies that I haven't seen because I want to read the book. And and they could be old movies now, but I'm still not going to see them because I'm like, I need to get around to reading the book first. I think one thing that is true is if you watch the movie, then you're reading the book, you're picturing what the director and the casting people wanted you to picture, right? So like I feel like my imagination isn't being used as much because I'm picturing what someone else's imagination,
right?
Kind of, and oftentimes for the movie adaptation, they have to condense things or, or like I think of like Harry Potter. I enjoy the Harry Potter movies, but a lot of the time it's because I'm filling in blanks or I'm filling in, deepening relationships that they don't have time to deepen, in a 2-hour movie that, this big, thick book allowed me to, that kind of thing. And I will say, in college, when I first read Wuthering Heights, I like raced out to go, and I'm dating myself, but to go rent the movie from the Blockbuster, right? On a VHS tape to watch it. And the movie, I'm sorry if anybody out there likes the movie, but the movie, like it mashed up important like parts and monologues. And I was like, oh my gosh, what did they do? It was terrible. I did not like it at all. So I went back and reread the book just to like end on that note. I could not just end on having that movie. So I'm big read the book first.
But the book is pretty depressing too. So
yes. But what I appreciated about it was not what I saw on the screen. But yeah, it's definitely not one I'm rereading every year.
Right. Well,
and we apologize to all Wuthering Heights fans.
Yes, I know.
Yes. We love all readers, no matter what your tastes or preferences are. they don't have to match ours exactly. That's how that goes.
I wanted to just point out what Wilfreda said here. As a blogger, Kensington's one of her favorite publishers because of their diversity within their cozy mysteries. And so thank you for saying that, Will.
Yes, thank you very much for saying that. We love working with our bloggers. We love working with our authors across the board. And in addition to that, I did see a couple comments up at the start saying that they love these chats. I'm so happy to hear that. We love bringing them to you guys. We're definitely hoping to do many more in the future, especially of these video chats, now that we all understand how the technology works after this past year.
Absolutely.
So in the meantime, I want to say a big thank you to both of you for joining us this evening, and a huge thank you to all the readers who tuned in and everyone who's going to watch this after the broadcast has ended. We appreciate every one of you, and I will be popping links in the comment section and on our Between the Chapters page with both Vanessa and Priscilla's books so that you guys can go out and check them out, buy them, make sure you read them. Yes, make sure you show them off. I can't hold all three at once, so I'll just point them out there. But again, I hope everyone has a lovely evening, and thank you again for joining us.
Yes. Thanks, everyone. Gracias.
Thank you.